I'll never forget the look on Natalie's face when I handed her my husband's suitcases, right there in front of her stunned husband. That single moment of complete shock, her perfectly mascara-lined eyes widening, her manicured hand flying to cover her mouth, it was worth every second of the pain I had endured. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Claire Donovan. I'm 42 years old and a marketing executive. Until 3 weeks ago, I believed I was one half of a rock-solid 15-year marriage. Ethan, my husband, and I moved to Oakwood Terrace 2 years ago. It's a quiet suburban neighborhood with tree-lined streets and houses spaced just far enough apart to give the illusion of privacy. It's the kind of place where neighbors wave at each other while collecting mail, but don't really know what's happening behind closed doors. Natalie and Caleb Brooks lived directly across from us. They were the picture-perfect couple. Natalie was always impeccably dressed, not a single blonde hair out of place. Caleb was successful in real estate, armed with that practiced charm that sold houses effortlessly. They welcomed us to the neighborhood with a bottle of wine and homemade cookies. I later learned Natalie had actually bought the cookies from the bakery downtown. That should have been my first clue about her authenticity. "You caught me at just the right time," I said to Ethan Carter that fateful Thursday morning, my voice hollow as I stood in the doorway of our bedroom. The sheets were still rumpled from where I'd been sleeping alone. He froze, one hand still pulling on a sock, like a deer caught in headlights. "What are you talking about?" he asked, but those eyes I had trusted for 15 years wouldn't meet mine. In my hand, I held his phone. He'd left it on the kitchen counter while showering. When it buzzed repeatedly with incoming texts, I did something I'd never done before. I looked. What I saw shattered the foundation of everything I believed about my life. "You really should be more careful with your passcode," I said quietly, scrolling through months of messages between my husband and Natalie Brooks. Explicit texts, plans for their secret meetups, inside jokes about getting together while Caleb was on business trips and I was working late. "Claire, I can explain," he started, but I cut him off sharply. "Explain what exactly? How you've been sleeping with our neighbor for the past 8 months? How you told her our marriage was on its last legs while whispering, 'I love you' to me every night?" "Please, Ethan, explain." The air in the room felt thick, unbreathable. Outside, through our bedroom window, I could see Natalie watering plants on her front porch, completely unaware that her carefully constructed secret was crumbling. "It's not what you think," Ethan Carter said, his voice soft and soothing, the same way he always tried to calm me when I was upset. I shivered, the comfort I used to find in his voice now making my skin crawl. "Really? Because I think you've been our neighbor whenever I wasn't around." The words felt foreign on my tongue, but somehow necessary. "I think you've been lying to my face for months while planning secret rendezvous with a woman who waves to me every morning." Something inside me shifted that morning. The initial shock gave way to a strange, eerie calm. It felt like I was watching myself from outside my body, a spectator to the scene unfolding before me. "I was going to end it," he said, voice cracking. "It just didn't mean anything," he added, but I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that surprised even me. "That's worse, Ethan," I said. "That means you risked everything we built together for something that didn't mean anything." He reached out to me, but I stepped back. "Don't." I watched him struggle, searching for the right words to undo what had already been done. There weren't any. "Does Caleb know?" I asked. "Of course not, Claire. Please, let's just talk, just us. We can work through this." "I don't care where you go, but you're not staying here tonight." "Claire, please, 15 years, don't throw that away." His voice broke, raw and pleading. "I made a terrible mistake. I'll do anything to fix this." His silence was answer enough. "Get out," I whispered. When he didn't move, something inside me snapped. "Get out," I screamed, loud enough that I was certain the neighbors could hear, including Sarah. He scrambled to his feet, backing away from me like I was dangerous. Perhaps in that moment, I was. "I'll get something," he said quickly. "We'll talk tomorrow when we're both calmer." I watched him hurry upstairs and a strange sense of clarity washed over me. In 15 years of marriage, I'd never yelled at him like that. I'd always been the reasonable one, the peacemaker, the one who compromised. Not anymore. While Ethan Carter packed upstairs, I walked to our front window and stared across the street at the Brooks house. The lights were on, and I could see shadows moving behind the curtains. Was Natalie panicking right now? Had Ethan Carter warned her that I knew? My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Lydia. "Everything okay? You seemed off on our call earlier." I hadn't told anyone yet. Saying it out loud would make it real in a way I wasn't ready for. But as I watched Ethan Carter descend the stairs with a hastily packed duffel bag, I knew I needed an ally. "Ethan's been cheating with our neighbor. Can you come over tomorrow?" Her response was immediate. "On my way now. Don't do anything I wouldn't do until I get there." That made me smile, however briefly. The list of things Lydia Harper wouldn't do was remarkably short. "I'll be at the Marriott downtown," Ethan Carter said awkwardly by the door. "Please call me tomorrow. We can work through this." I said nothing. Just watched as he walked out of our home and drove away. Not to the Marriott, I was certain, but probably straight to Natalie's waiting arms. The moment Caleb left on his business trip tomorrow, the thought made my blood boil. That night, I barely slept. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, cataloging every lie, every betrayal. By morning, my sadness had crystallized into something harder, colder. I knew exactly what I needed to do. When Lydia Harper arrived, her fierce hug nearly broke me. "Tell me everything," she demanded. So I did. Every sordid detail, every painful realization, every plan forming in my mind. "You're sure about this?" she asked when I finished. "It's extreme," I admitted. "So is screwing the neighbor for 8 months. They humiliated me in my own home, in my own neighborhood. I'm just returning the favor." Lydia Harper studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay then, let's get to work." What Ethan Carter never understood about me, what he clearly underestimated, was my capacity for strategic thinking. You don't become a marketing executive without knowing how to plan several steps ahead. "First things first," I told Lydia Harper as we sat at my kitchen table that morning, "I need to confirm Mark's schedule." "How are you going to do that without tipping off Sarah?" she asked. I smiled thinly. "Caleb and I have something in common. We both work too much. He posts his real estate open houses on the community Facebook page every week." Sure enough, a quick check confirmed Caleb had open houses scheduled all day Saturday. Tomorrow. Perfect timing. "Now we need to get Ethan's things." I said. Lydia Harper raised an eyebrow. "All of them?" "No, just enough to make a statement." We spent the morning selecting items from Ethan's closet, his favorite suits, the expensive watch I'd given him for our 10th anniversary, the monogrammed shirts his mother sent every Christmas. I packed everything methodically into our largest suitcases, adding his toiletries, medications, and the framed photo of us from his nightstand. "What about this?" Lydia Harper held up his passport. I considered it for a moment. "Add it. He'll need it when he's living somewhere else." By noon, we had 3 large suitcases packed. I sent Ethan Carter a text. "I've packed some essentials for you. You can get the rest later." His reply came quickly. "Thank you. Can we talk today?" I didn't respond. Instead, I called my lawyer, a shark of a woman who'd handled my company's contracts for years. She agreed to meet me that afternoon. "You're not wasting any time," Lydia Harper observed as I grabbed my keys. "Why would I?" I replied. "They didn't waste us." While Lydia Harper stayed at the house, I met with my lawyer, Vivian, and laid out everything. She took detailed notes, her expression growing progressively darker. "Digital evidence?" she asked. "I have screenshots of everything," I confirmed, "and phone records showing their calls." Vivian Clark nodded approvingly. "Good. What else do you need from me today?" "A preliminary separation agreement, and I want our accounts frozen." She studied me carefully. "You're sure you don't want to attempt counseling first?" "I'm not interested in what looks favorable," I cut in. "I'm interested in what's fair. He betrayed me in our home with our neighbor for 8 months. He manipulated my career choices to facilitate his affair. I want him to feel this." Vivian's stern expression softened slightly. I understand. I'll have the paperwork ready by this evening. Back at home, Lydia Harper had been busy. I did some digging, she announced. Natalie's been quite the social media butterfly. Look. She showed me Natalie's Instagram account. It was set to private, but Lydia Harper had found a way in through a mutual acquaintance. There were dozens of photos from the past year that took on new meaning now. There was Natalie at a restaurant Ethan Carter had claimed to have never visited. Natalie wearing a bracelet identical to one Ethan Carter said he'd bought for his mother. Natalie on a weekend trip to the coast during a time Ethan Carter said he was at a conference. She's been flaunting it, I said, feeling sick. Right under everyone's noses. Not just that, Lydia Harper added grimly. I think they've been using your house. She pointed to a photo of Natalie holding a wine glass. In the background, barely visible but unmistakable to me, was the unique tile backsplash from my kitchen. The realization hit me like a bucket of ice water. They hadn't just been sleeping together. They'd been bringing their affair into my home when I was gone. Something cold and hard settled in my chest. Change of plans, I said quietly. We're not just packing his essentials, we're delivering them tomorrow. That night I barely slept again. But this time, it wasn't grief keeping me awake. It was anticipation. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. From my bedroom window, I watched Caleb Brooks leave for his open houses, dressed in his real estate finest. An hour later, Ethan Carter texted again. Can we meet for coffee to talk? I'm busy today. I'll let you know when I'm ready to talk. I could almost feel his frustration through the phone. Good. You sure about this? Lydia Harper asked as we loaded the suitcases into my car. Absolutely. What Ethan Carter also didn't know was that while he'd been sneaking around with Sarah, I'd been making friends in the neighborhood on my own, including Margaret Shaw, the retired teacher who lived next door to the Brooks S. During one of our morning walks, Margaret had mentioned that Natalie received frequent male visitors when Caleb was away. Such a shame, Margaret had said. Caleb is such a nice man. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Now I realized Margaret had been trying to tell me something. I'd texted Margaret that morning. Is Natalie home alone today? Her response came quickly. Yes, dear. Caleb left for work. She's been home all morning. Everything all right? Everything's perfect. Would you mind texting me if she leaves? Of course. Lydia Harper and I waited until afternoon. No text from Margaret meant Natalie was still home. No text from Ethan Carter either. He'd probably given up for the day. Ready, Wanchonis? Lydia Harper asked as we pulled up across the street from the Brooks' house. I took a deep breath. Ready. We unloaded the suitcases and rolled them up to the Brooks' front door. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My hands were steady as I rang the doorbell. The weight of the moment seemed eternal. Then the door swung open. Natalie Brooks stood there, her perfect smile faltering as she took in the sight of me, Lydia, and 3 large suitcases on her doorstep. Claire, she said, confusion evident in her voice. Is everything okay? I smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes. Everything's wonderful, Sarah. I brought Ethan's things. Since he's spending so much time here, I thought he might need them. The color drained from Natalie's face so quickly, I thought she might faint. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for water. I don't know what you're talking about, she stammered, one hand clutching the doorframe for support. I tilted my head slightly. No? That's strange because, according to the text on his phone, you two have been quite intimate for months now. I pushed the largest suitcase forward with my foot. His clothes, his toiletries. Oh, and this one. I patted the medium-sized case. It has those monogrammed shirts you complimented him on, the ones his mother gave him. Her eyes widened at that specific detail, a confirmation if I ever needed one. Claire, please, she whispered, glancing frantically over her shoulder into the house. This isn't what you think. Oh, what do I think, Sarah? I snapped. That you've been sleeping with my husband in my bed when I'm not home? That you've been laughing behind my back at neighborhood barbecues? What's going on here? A deep voice interrupted my tirade. Caleb Brooks appeared behind his wife, looking between us with growing concern. He was supposed to be at his open houses. The carefully constructed plan in my head began to crumble. Natalie's face went from white to green. Mark, you're home early. Open house canceled. The sellers had a family emergency, he said. His eyes fell on the suitcases, then back to me. Claire, what's this about? For a split second, I faltered. This wasn't how I'd planned it. Caleb was supposed to be gone, and Natalie was supposed to be alone. But something in Mark's confused expression, the same trusting bewilderment I'd felt just days ago, steeled my resolve. Your wife has been having an affair with my husband for the past 8 months, I said clearly. I found out on Thursday. I brought his things here since this seems to be where he spends most of his time when you're working. The silence that followed was deafening. Mark's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to something darker as he processed my words. That's ridiculous, Natalie finally sputtered. Mark, she's clearly having some kind of breakdown, isn't she? Natalie pleaded. Caleb cut in, his voice dangerously quiet. He turned to me. You have proof of this? I pulled out my phone, opened the screenshots I'd taken, and handed it to him without a word. Natalie lunged for it, but Lydia Harper smoothly stepped between them. Don't, my sister warned. Caleb scrolled through the messages, his face hardening with each swipe. The explicit texts, the planning, the inside jokes at both our expenses. When he looked up, his eyes were cold. How long? He asked his wife. Mark, please, I can explain. How long? He roared, making all of us flinch. Natalie began to cry, mascara tracking down her cheeks. It just happened, Mark. It didn't mean anything. I laughed bitterly. Funny, that's exactly what Ethan Carter said. As if summoned by his name, a car screeched to a halt at the curb. Ethan Carter jumped out, panic written all over his face. Claire, what are you doing? He called, rushing toward us. Caleb handed me back my phone and turned to face my husband. I think your wife is delivering your belongings to their new home, he said, his voice eerily calm. Since you've been so comfortable in mine, Ethan Carter stopped in his tracks. Mark, listen, if you say this isn't what it looks like, I might actually punch you, Caleb interrupted, because it looks exactly like you've been cheating on me, my wife, behind my back, behind Claire's back. He pointed to the suitcases. Take your things and get off my property. Ethan's face crumpled. Sarah, tell him. Tell him what? I asked, finding my voice again. That you've been planning weekend getaways together. That you've been in our bed when I'm not home. That you, my voice broke slightly, that you told her our marriage was failing while telling me everything was fine. A small crowd had begun to gather on the sidewalk, neighbors pretending to walk dogs or check mail, all watching the drama unfold, including Margaret Shaw, who gave me a small, sad nod of acknowledgement. Everyone is watching, Natalie hissed, trying to pull Caleb back inside. We need to talk about this privately. No, Caleb said firmly, shaking off her hand. I'm done with privacy and secrets. He turned to me. Did you know about this before Thursday? I shook my head. I had no idea. I found their messages on his phone. Caleb nodded, a look of grim understanding passing between us. Fellow members of a club no one wants to join. Ethan, I said, turning to my shell-shocked husband, I've frozen our accounts. I filed separation papers. My lawyer will contact you on Monday. I gestured to the suitcases. You should take these. I assume you'll need somewhere to stay now that both your beds are unavailable to you. Ethan Carter stared at me. Perhaps he hadn't. Not really. Not this version of me that refused to be a silent, accommodating victim. You can't do this, he said weakly. I already have. Caleb stepped forward, picked up the largest suitcase, and shoved it hard into Ethan's chest. Take your things and leave. Now. The neighborhood watched in stunned silence as Ethan Carter loaded his suitcases into his car. Natalie had retreated inside the house, sobbing audibly as Ethan Carter drove away. Caleb turned to me. I'm sorry, he said simply. Me too. Coffee sometime? He asked, surprising me. I think we might have a lot to talk about. Despite everything, I found myself nodding. I'd like that. As Lydia Harper and I walked back to my car, The weight that had been crushing my chest since Thursday felt lighter. Not gone, but transformed into something I could carry. "You okay?" Lydia Harper asked, squeezing my hand. I looked back at the Brooks house, where Caleb stood alone on the porch, looking as shell-shocked as I'd felt days earlier. "No," I answered honestly, "but I think I will be." 6 months passed. Seasons changed. Wounds began to heal. The divorce was finalized faster than I expected. Ethan Carter didn't fight it. He couldn't really, with the evidence stacked against him. I kept the house. He kept his guilt. Natalie and Caleb Brooks put their house on the market 3 weeks after that day on their doorstep. I heard they separated too, though Caleb stayed in town while Natalie moved back to her parents' place in Michigan. The neighborhood gossip eventually found new targets. But Margaret Shaw still brings me cookies occasionally, telling me how proud she is of my moxie. Ethan Carter tried to contact me several times in those first few months. Apology texts, emails explaining how he'd found himself through therapy, and once flowers delivered to my office with a card begging for coffee, just to talk. I donated the flowers to a nearby nursing home and never responded to any of his outreach. Some wounds don't need closure. Some betrayals don't deserve forgiveness. What surprised me most was my friendship with Mark. That coffee invitation turned into weekly walks, then occasional dinners. Two broken people finding comfort in the one person who truly understood their specific pain. "Do you think they were worth it?" Caleb asked one evening as we sat on my back porch, watching fireflies dance in the summer dusk. To each other, I mean. Was there a fair worth losing all of this? I considered the question carefully. "I don't think it was ever about worth," I finally replied. "It was about convenience, opportunity, selfishness." He nodded slowly. "I keep wondering if I missed signs, if I should have known." "Me too," I admitted. "But I've realized something. Their choices weren't a reflection of what we lacked. They were a reflection of what they lacked. Integrity, courage, honor." Mark's hand found mine in the growing darkness, a gesture of understanding, not romance. Not yet. We were both still healing, still learning to trust again. "I'm selling real estate in Colorado next month," he said after a comfortable silence. "A week-long trip, beautiful mountains, clean air. You should come." I turned to look at him, surprised. "As your friend," he said quickly. "Separate rooms. I think we both could use some perspective, some distance from this place and its memories." I squeezed his hand gently. "I'd like that." Later that night, after Caleb had gone home, I stood in my bedroom, the room I'd once shared with Ethan, and realized I'd gone a whole day without thinking of my ex-husband. Progress comes in small moments. Healing happens in quiet spaces between heartbeats. I picked up my phone and texted Lydia, "I think I'm going to Colorado next month." Her response came immediately, "With neighbor guy?" "Yes, as friends for now." I smiled at her teasing, then walked to the window that overlooked what used to be the Brooks house. New owners had moved in last month, a young couple with a toddler and another baby on the way. I'd welcomed them with wine and store-bought cookies, making no claims about baking them myself. The truth I've learned is always simpler than lies. I don't know what the future holds with Mark, with my career, or with this house full of complicated memories. But I know this. I survived the worst betrayal I could imagine, and I emerged stronger, not unscathed, but unbroken. Sometimes when life hands you heartbreak, you don't just survive it, you use it to build something new. Something honest, something real. And sometimes the greatest revenge isn't in the moment of exposure, but in the quiet dignity of rebuilding your life without those who tried to destroy it. I closed the curtains on my old view and turned toward whatever comes next. Thanks for watching. If you like this story, please like and subscribe. Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next video.